And so far, we've just had 2 discussions. And there's the topic, the theme, that we will be discussing this visit, my visit. Lessons from Ramayana. Now, in the Hare Krishna movement, we are much more familiar with Srimad Bhagavatam and the stories of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lesser degree, but also Mahabharata, and far lesser degree is Ramayana. But Ramayana is a very lovely, very much loved literature, many important lessons to be learned from Ramayana, and we've just discussed 2 of them so far, and number 3 tonight. First one was an interesting one, Dvidvida and Minda, and Dvidvida's offense to Lakshman, and as a result of his offense to Lakshman, bad things happened. And he ended up being killed by Balaram much later. He was a living entity, a Chiranjiva that lived a long, long time. So, Minda and Dvidvida, we heard, and then yesterday the obstacles met by Hanuman as he was crossing the sea to reach Lanka to deliver the message to Sita. And in the course of the discussion yesterday, there was a couple of topics that came up that were going to be further researched. One of them was further researched. The topic was Samudra, who is the name of the sea god or the ocean personified, on the one hand, acted in a way that was favorable to Ramachandra, and later on, he didn't respond to Ramachandra when Ramachandra wanted to cross the ocean, and Ramachandra was fasting for 3 days, and Samudra didn't show up. So we had some discussion about that, and little research. One of the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas, Govinda Raj, who has written he's considered, to my knowledge at least, the superlative commentator on Ramayana, Govinda Raj. And so there's a devotee, an ISKCON devotee, who is drawing largely from Govindaraj's commentary and other sources and making a very, very extensive text, several volume, to study on Ramayana. So from his book, Vidvan Garanga is his name. Some parts are finished, some parts are not yet finished. So this topic is discussed, and that was sent out. Little document was sent out. If there's anyone here that did not receive that document and would like to receive that and other documents, like one from this evening as well, that give your information to Parama Karuna, and he'll see that you get these little documents that are helping to understand the topics we're discussing. So the topic we're discussing this evening is different ways of identifying, but a common way that it's identified is Sita's exile or banishment. That sounds really, both of them are pretty harsh. And Ram was the executor of both, or either, her exile or her banishment. And for some people, that's a big problem, spiritually or emotionally, because one of the names by which Ramachandra is known, Purushottama, means that the topmost person, who's Maryada, and he who by his Leela was teaching, and by his words and by his everything, exhibiting ideal follower, strict follower of Vedic rules. So it's along with, let's say, Madhu Samhita that gives the rules, here's the person that lived the rules. Ramachandra exhibited perfect character, perfect conduct, perfect follower of Vedic rules and regulations, and he never transgressed them. Smartavya Satatam Vishnu, or Vismartavya, always think of Krishna, never forget Krishna, backwards, forwards. So he was that kind of character, and Sita's exile some people find disturbing. And on top of it, she was 5 months pregnant. So how to process that one? That's our topic. And there's something like 8 different explanations. So you breathe a little easier if you first let it sink in. A woman that's 5 months pregnant and send her to the forest. People don't do stuff like that. What to speak of a perfectly religious person? How could you do stuff like that? And from an ISKCON perspective, Sita is exhibiting the same mood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was expressing in Shikshastaka. Some of you know the verse. It's the last verse of Shikshastaka. Let's say it together. Aslishyava padaratam panashtumam adarshanam armahatam karotava yata tatava viditata lampato mat prananatas tusana evam na paraha. Translation: I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipable Lord, unconditionally. So Sita didn't become upset. Rather, many other things can be said about what happened. And there's a document that you'll be receiving, hopefully. If you're not on the list of the receivers, you just ask and you'll receive it. It's a very nice, comprehensive, carefully worded document by one of Prabhupada's disciples who maybe is more well known as being an astrologer, Shyamasundara Prabhu. And, for some period of time, he was responsible for the Vaishnava calendar, because having to do with astrology and, the movements of the sun and the moon and everything. And lesser known is he really likes diving deeply into scriptural topics. And this is one of those scriptural topics that he wrote. And actually he went to the trouble of getting it copyrighted. So you'll send it out with his permission that you can receive it. And he did some extensive research on this particular question. And he came up with one of the several answers to this particular question. In this little article you'll read, according to Madhvacharya, the 24,000 verses in Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana, is just a small slice of the big pie. According to Madhvacharya, Mula Ramayana, which is mentioned in the introduction to Ramayana, that Mula Ramayana was given by Lord Brahma to Valmiki, and Valmiki wrote his Valmiki Ramayana. But he knew of the events about Ramachandra's life before Ramachandra appeared. And the number of verses is 100 crore, or the number of zeros is 1 billion verses. That's a lot of zeros. 1 billion verses out of 24,000 that are recorded in Valmiki Ramayana, so it's a small slice of a big pie. And there's a section in Padma Purana he makes reference to that specifically is dedicated to Ramachandra. So there are many sources where the pastimes of Ramachandra are narrated. That's one of them, Padma Purana. And it discusses this topic nicely. And the preceding part of that nice discussion is a situation that kings would often do. It was a standard practice. They would send spies or intelligence people go out and find out what's the scuttlebutt, what's being talked about in the kingdom. They may not come and report something to the king, so the spies would go and find out what's going on in the kingdom. So there were 6 special spies that, according to Padma Purana, they were engaged in finding out what's going on in the kingdom. And then they would report back to Ram, and one of them was unwilling to report what he heard, but Ram detected he's not disclosing. He's not disclosing that. The one that heard this rumor, well, here's the rumor. There's a particular reference from Padma Purana. This was a washerman named Krodana by name, and he was speaking to his wife. He was not just speaking to his wife, he was kicking his wife, scolding and kicking his wife, because his wife had spent the night outside of her home in someone else's home. And when she came back the next day, he was scolding her severely, saying things, "I am not King Ram who had protected Sita, who had stayed at another's house. Get out of the home. King can do no wrong. I'm not like Ram. I'm not qualified like him. He's keeping a woman as his wife and protecting her even after she spent so many days in another man's home. So I'm not like that. I won't do that." And so he was speaking harshly. And the spy was instructed by Ramachandra, if somebody speaks something negative, don't harm them, don't kill them. He wanted to kill the fellow, but he didn't, because Ram's instruction checked him from doing that. So now they're back in the palace. Ram wants to know. And finally, Ram asked so many times, finally, the others said, "You got to tell him." So he told them what happened and who the person was. And he became very disconsolate, and to the point where he fainted, according to Padma Purana. Ramchandra fainted. And after he regained consciousness, he called for Bharata. And he told Bharata the whole story, what he had just heard, and he wanted to know from Bharata what he should do. Bharata was silent, and he said, "I understand that either one of 2 things should happen. Sita should be banished, or I should be killed." And Bharata gave reason and logic and consoling, and even Lord Brahma confirmed that Sita is sinless. She's untouched by any contamination. So please give up this grief that you're feeling. He was silent. And he said, "I'm instructing you, either arrange for Sita to be banished or cut off my head." Padma Purana. And Bharata fainted. And that's where the section ends. Now the next section begins. Who is this washerman named Krodana. And the next section describes King Janak, who received a daughter when plowing the field, and etc., gives that description. And then when the daughter grew up, like the goddess of fortune, he named her Sita. She was with her friends in a forested area, and she heard two parrots who were narrating the story of Sita and Ram. And, repeating what they had heard from Valmiki's ashram. So Sita was fascinated hearing about her life and who she was going to marry, young girl. Oh, who's this? Tell me more. She arranged for her friends to capture the two parrots. She had some realization that they were celestial beings, so she was respectful, and she started asking them questions. Where'd you hear all this? And they said previously we were living in the forest, and in Valmiki's ashram, he was reciting these nice stories. And we heard it so many times, we just repeated it because we're parrots. That's what parrots do. And then she wanted to know more. And they said, well, we don't know more. We only know what we heard. And we just repeating what we heard. So Sita said, I think you know something more. So she put the female bird in a cage. And the female bird said, I'm pregnant. And she said, I'm going to leave you here in the cage. Your husband can go find out the answer to my questions, but I want answers to my questions. She was being haughty. And the female bird began crying and wailing and making loud sounds and saying, I can't bear separation from my husband. Please bring me together with my husband. And Sita was unrelenting. The female bird died in the cage. And the male bird saw all of this, and he was so distressed, he flew in the air and ended up in the river and died. And just before he died, he made a curse that just as I am being separated, you will also have to be separated from your husband, even when you're pregnant. You get the connection. And so that Krodana, the male bird in his next life, became a washerman. And to fulfill the curse, he said what he said. And that was the impetus to bring about Sita's being sent to the forest. Here's what it says in Garga Samhita, very similar. It's several references. This is the washerman saying, I will not maintain you, a sinner that returns at dawn from another's house. Ramchandra, who is greedy to enjoy with his wife, may continue to maintain his Sita, but I am not like him. So this is verse 5 from chapter 10. Verse 7, Lord Ramachandra had no wish to punish him. That's the washerman. And in due course, this person became a washerman in Mathura at the end of Dwapara Yuga. Remember the washerman. Now we discussed this a little bit. It's a little unsure about all of this because there's several yuga cycles between when Ramchandra's pastimes took place and when Krishna's pastimes took place. But this is what Garga Samhita says. To stop his blasphemy, however, Lord Krishna killed him. Then the Lord, who is an ocean of mercy, gave him liberation. So the washerman got liberated. So at least according to Garga Samhita, the previous birth, at least sometime previous, was the washerman Krodana, who previous to that was the male parrot. And some nice paintings of Krishna letting the washerman have it, tying him up with his cloth and giving the cloth to the boys. From Valmiki Ramayana, so that's one explanation. It was foretold by destiny. Oh yeah, here's another detail. The Brahmana is called Dvija because twice born, Ja and Dvija. And birds are also Dvija, twice born, being as an egg, and then the egg hatches and becomes a bird. So the pronouncements of Dvija must bear fruit. This is what it describes in Padma Purana. Therefore, what the male parrot had said to Sita had to take place because it was pronounced by a Dvija. That's a detail. Some of the commentators on Ramayana say that one of the reasons given why Sita went to the forest is because she had specifically requested Ram, not at this particular time, but to again spend time in the forest with the sages, sometime after they returned to Ayodhya. And further, some Sri Vaishnavacharyas say, amongst the sages in the forest. Some comment in that way. Others, a third category is Sita got a reaction for offending Lakshman. We had this whole discussion the first evening. Don't offend Lakshman. Don't make aparad against Lakshmana. Because that's what Dvidvida did, and he got the big reaction. So Sita, some commentators describe that Sita's harsh words when Maricha called out loudly after being hit by Ram's arrow, Lakshman, Sita, help. They both heard, Sita and Lakshman both heard, but she took it as real and took it as a trick. So Sita started saying pretty harsh things. Harsh things, like insulting things, which are, he was hard for him to hear those harsh things. And then when she threatened to give up her life if he didn't go, he said, I can't go to obey the command of Ram. And Ram said, stay. So there are different versions of Ramayana. And it's not in Valmiki Ramayana, but this particular illustration shows he made a mark with his bow surrounding like a Lakshman Rekha, a circle around the cottage, and instructed her, don't step outside that circle and you'll be okay. Ramachandra, or the personality of Godhead, doesn't bear offense against his dear devotees, especially Lakshman, who's in relation to Ramachandra is like Guru. We'll be discussing this one evening also, Lakshman as Guru, and how do we understand that? So even if the offender is the goddess of fortune, Sita, don't mess with Lakshman, is one of the reasons. You notice in the upper left that so far we're counting 3. Here, if a reference from Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the Bhava Bhakti section of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he describes offense. The most serious of offense are these offense, Krishna Preshta Aparad. Krishna Preshta Aparad is offending Krishna directly, or even worse, offending Krishna's dear devotee. And in that section he writes, that bhava can be destroyed. There's sometimes a question, is it possible for bhava to be destroyed? The Bharat Maharaj story is a question where that comes up. So he didn't specifically make an offense, but Sita did. The goddess of fortune offended Lakshman. Of course, it's Leela, but there's a consequence. And the consequence was what the consequence was. Of course, the consequence was she was kidnapped. But there's another consequence. This particular consequence is referred to by some acharyas. And there's another reference. We had some discussion 2 evenings ago about the wife of Brigu. Not the wife of Brigu, but Brigu. So Brigu had a wife. And Brigu's wife's name was Kyati. And there's 3 or 4 different references where from the Puranas where Kyati was giving, some say, giving protection to the demons. Some say she was getting ready to kill the demigods to protect the demons, because Shukra Acharya, who's the priest or the guru of the demons, was somehow related to her. And so she had a soft place in her heart for the demons, and the demons were having it out with the demigods. And there's different details from the different scriptural references. Here's one. The demons fleeing from the demigods took shelter of the soft-hearted Kyati in their ashram. The Brigu was away doing his midday duties. The demons came and took shelter in her ashram. She gave them shelter. And then the demigods came to attack the demons. Kyati was ready to kill the demigods to protect the asuras. And then the demigods went to Indra for Indra's help. Indra went to Vishnu for his help, and Vishnu cut off Kyati's head. According to Matsya Purana. And Brigu came back, saw his wife with his head chopped, and then cursed Vishnu. There's different descriptions, and he regretted his curse after he had done. Vishnu said, because you're a Brahmin, I'll accept this curse, although he doesn't need to accept anyone's curse. Just as I became separated from my wife, Vishnu will also be separated from his wife at some point. Now, different Puranas narrate this slightly differently, but the theme goes like you're finding here, because this was the easiest one to fit on the screen. I can send that document later, and you can receive the document that has more descriptions. And the topic is Sita's exile. And did Ram violate something? The rules of Dharma. How could he? How could he send his wife away? What to speak of when she's pregnant? Another explanation, because there was this gossip about himself, to protect his citizens from the affliction, because it's not just the person who speaks it. According to scripture, the person who hears, serious offense, Vaishnava aparad, what to speak of, personality, offense to the personality of Godhead, or offense to the king. To protect his citizens, he sent his wife. He subordinated his personal desire, being with his wife at all costs, for the interest of his citizens. They wouldn't have to hear rumors about him, although it had already, as Bharata indicated, it's already been demonstrated. When Sita was regained in Lanka, he wouldn't accept her back. You know the story. She was to enter fire. and she entered fire just on the instruction of her husband, and then she was carried out of the fire by Agni. She proved her chastity to the world, and Brahma confirmed she's perfectly chaste, etc., etc. There's further confirmation coming at the very end of this presentation. Another explanation I like very much, and that is Ram was protecting Sita. Because if there's going to be some blame, she should not be the one that's blamed. He should be the one that's being blamed. So some people blame him. How could he do this? How could he send her away? So he became the lightning rod for the criticism, instead of Sita being the lightning rod for the criticism. Because in the citizens, you know how it goes. If there's some gossip, it goes quickly. Good news doesn't necessarily go as quickly. Gossip goes very quickly. Rumors spread really fast. Somehow it happens like that. So some of the Acharya commentators say Ram wanted to remove any blame or criticism of Sita, so she was sent away to Valmiki's ashram to be cared for by him and not be subjected to the criticism of her. And what to speak of the children, that they wouldn't be subjected to the criticism of their mother. So it was because of Ram's love for Sita and his yet unborn children. Some describe in that way. And here's another. Instead of considering the idea that Sita was unfit for Ayodhya, Sri Ram deemed that Ayodhya was unfit for such a chaste lady as Sita. So he sent her to a place where she wouldn't be subjected to that bad conduct, bad behavior, bad speech. It was a loving gesture, one way of looking. And same with the children, not being subject to hearing criticism of their mother. And here's yet another, number 8. This is Madhvacharya. And he wrote a very extensive commentary on Mahabharata. He had special regard for Mahabharata, and so he made special commentary on Mahabharata. And as you probably know, we mentioned it the other day, sections of Mahabharata that give narrations about Ramayana, because Mahabharata is an itihasa, and part of the history that's described. Mahabharata talks about history in Ramayana. So there's sections in Mahabharata about Ramayana. So there's a little section where Madhvacharya, makes comment on a demon doing austerities at being given a request for benedictions. He made this request: for as long as Lakshmi and Narayan are united, I cannot die. With the understanding that they're always together. So he cannot die. And so demon asked for that request. Ram, when separated from Sita, Indra killed the demon. Then Ram had planned he would call her back. But that's not what happened. She came back, but when she came back, she didn't want to stay. She wanted to enter the earth. So many of you know this section of the Ramayana. When the children were born, Shatrughna, we're going to hear a little discussion about Shatrughna. He's the least spoken about member of the 4 brothers. But he volunteered to do some service to free Madhupuri from a terrible demon. Lavanasura. We'll hear some more. So as Shatrughna was passing from Ayodhya, Puri, which is Mathura, Madhupuri is another name for Mathura. We'll hear some more in a couple evenings. Madhupuri is another name for Mathura. So on his way to Madhupuri, he passed through Valmiki's ashram, and he observed the birth ceremony conducted by Valmiki at the birth of these two boys. And so there's Valmiki, who could be a better teacher than Valmiki, training them in all the Vedas, but not only in all the Vedas, training them completely in all arts, in music, in Sanskrit, and you name it. He taught them everything because he's Valmiki. And one of the things he taught them was how to recite Ramayana. And, in different meter, because there's rules in Sanskrit for pronunciation and melodies and so forth and so on. And so they learned all these things. He also taught them military skills. He taught them everything. He gave them diksha and taught them how to play musical instruments. So after some time, Valmiki, was invited to come to Ayodhya and have a recital of Ram's Leela. And so Valmiki came, and he brought the two boys. Now, Ram hasn't seen the two boys, and here's a painting where there's this concert going on. Love and Kush are there. Valmiki is there, very, very happy event. And when he is told, who are those two boys? These are your sons. He was stunned. And if they're here, that means Sita is here. And so Sita was identified hidden in the audience. There's different versions of this. And he requested her to come sit by his side. And she replied that she wanted to leave the world because her presence would bring ill fame to Ram. So she made these utterances. If I have never even thought about anyone other than Ram, then may the earth goddess grant me shelter. She came from the earth, she's going to go back to the earth. As I worship only Ram in mind, speech, and action, so may the earth give me space. So the earth opened up and gave her a place, and she sat next to Bhumi and went into the earth. If I have truthfully said that I know only Ram as my Lord, let the earth receive me now. So some of you have been to there's an art gallery. This is a painting from the art gallery in the Delhi temple. One section of the temple is different paintings, nicely framed, and it's it's a museum. So here's a painting. It's directly taken from the Delhi temple, where Bhumi is giving a place to Sita, and the earth opened up. There's Ram and Lakshman and the other brothers. There's Hanuman, there's everybody in the background, and she enters into the earth. And there's Vishishta, the two boys looking shocked. Ram is looking over his royal throne, and he said, "Oh, goddess, you should return Sita to me, or you will feel my wrath. Sita was formerly brought out from your womb. Thus you are my mother-in-law." Clever. "Therefore, be kind to me and return Sita, or else grant space to me also." I will stay with Sita wherever she has gone, whether it be heaven or in the nether regions. O earth goddess, hear my words, or else I shall destroy you with all your mountains and forests. Valmiki Ramayana says, Ram's eyes blazed in anger, and he stood up, reaching for the bow by his side. Sounds like a big problem. Lord Brahma then spoke from above the sacrifice, this arena where they were conducting these activities. O Rama, Lord of all the worlds, do not be grieved. Remember your identity as Vishnu. By your own arrangement has this separation from Sita been ordained. The pure and noble daughter of Janaka has gone to celestial realms, where you will see her again without doubt. Now in Ramayana, it doesn't speak so much of going to Vaikuntha or anything like that. It speaks of the celestial realms. So don't worry about that. That's just the language of Ramayana. I want to read two things. One of them is from Valmiki Ramayana, describing when Lakshman was given the responsibility of taking Sita to Valmiki's ashram, and he didn't want to do it, and didn't want to do it, and didn't want to do it, and he did it anyways. Sumantra went with him, and there was a very strong exchange between Sita and Lakshman. I'll just read. For some time, Lakshman and Sumantra traveled in silence, returning from Valmiki's ashram, thinking of Sita. Finally, as the chariot came out of the forest and onto the main road leading to Ayodhya, Lakshman said, and basically what he said to Sumantra is, how can Ram do this? How can Ram, he could destroy the entire universe. He's so powerful, yet he's feeling this pain of separation. How to understand this conduct of Ram? Sumantra comforted Lakshman, telling him a story he had long ago heard from Durvasa Muni. The sage, Durvasa Muni, once stayed at Vashishta's hermitage. Now, if there was a time when Vashishta wasn't in the royal palace, he was living in a forest. Durvasa Muni visited Vashishta's hermitage. O prince, at that time, your father, Dasarath, went there and I drove his chariot. Dasarath inquired from Durvasa about the prospects for his sons. So apparently, Vashishta was not living in the palace. He had a hermitage by the palace or something to that effect. And that's where Durvasa Muni was visiting. And according to this description from Ramayana, Dasarath visited Vashishta's hermitage and was inquiring from Durvasa about the future of his sons. You know, he could horoscope, but just asked Durvasa how long they would live and rule over the world. In reply, Durvasa narrated some history. In ancient times, the Daityas had been conquered in battle by the gods. This is the Brigu and Kyati story, right from Valmiki Ramayana. So Kyati gave shelter to the demons when they were being harassed by the demigods. The demigods followed Brigu's had gone to do his midday duties, and while he was gone, the demigods were trying to attack. Here's what it says. Only the sage's wife had been present, and so when Brigu was gone, she gave them shelter. When Vishnu, who was assisting the gods in their campaign against the Daityas, learned of this, he became angry with Brigu's wife and severed her head with his Sudarshan chakra. Brigu then returned, and having seen his wife slain by Vishnu, he cursed Vishnu. As you have killed my innocent spouse, so you will take birth in the mortal world and meet with separation from your wife for many years. Samantra concluded his story. As soon as he uttered the curse, Brigu became very sorry, bowed down to Vishnu. Vishnu said, I'll accept it because it's come from an elevated personality like you. Durvasa then went on to explain that although Rama would become the Lord of Ayodhya and rule over the earth for 11,000 years, he would be separated from Sita. Thus it had come to pass, the words of a rishi can never fail. So then they get back, and Ram is disconsolate, and Lakshman reassures him and accepting destiny, because destiny covers us all. Of course, Lakshman certainly understood Ram is not controlled by destiny, but he honors the words of a Brahmana. And here's our last slide. Where is he? Our Sri Vaishnava scholar. There he is, okay. Come forward. You know who is Pillai Lokacharya, yes? A celebrated Sri Vaishnava Acharya. You know of this person, right? Pillai Lokacharya. Yes. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So he, amongst many Sri Vaishnava Acharyas, has written about Ramayana extensively. And there's a little section that I'm going to refer to, and that's the characteristics of Sita's separation from Ram. And in discussing that section of Ramayana, he has indicated three particular aspects. I won't go into much more than that. Here's one of them. Para dukkam. We know what dukkha means. You know what dukkha means? What does it mean? Sadness. Right. And para dukkha means super sadness, right? Supreme sadness. So he writes, that's one of the characteristics of Sita, because she was feeling very distressed that there were so many women who had been kidnapped by Ravan, and she wanted to go to Lanka to solace them and to free them if possible. Now it was circumstantial how she went there, but that's what he's written. And then another term is paratantiam. Paratantiam. And that is, she, Sita, is completely dependent upon Ramachandra for her happiness or pleasure. And on this note, this is his writing, summarizing at least. Sita went to the forest when she was pregnant. She knew the talk that was going on in town. She didn't want to bring any bad name to Ram and didn't want to put Ram into a difficult situation. So this is the Sita's exile. It was Sita's inspiration according to Pillai Lokacharya, one of the celebrated spiritual masters in the line of Ramanujacharya. Whatever was best for Ram's interest, live in the palace, live in the forest, whatever is, it's, you know, it's similar to that, the final teaching of Shikshastaka. The language is different, the mood is the same. And the third, in his commentary on this particular point, Ananyar Hatvam, I fully belong to one, and only to the Lord, not anyone else. And so her statement that she made before entering into the earth, in his words, I have not thought of any other men other than Ram. If it's true, let Bhumi give me place in her abode. So by her being removed, it takes the gossip and stain away from Ram. So let me depart in this way. I came from the earth, let me go back to the earth. By these promises, this is Pillai Lokacharya, by these promises, she proved that she only belongs to Ram and no one else. Her existence is only to bring glories to Ram, otherwise there is no need for her to stay in this world. So that's a lot of different explanations why what Ram did wasn't contrary to religious principles. And, you know, it's worth hearing it a few times, because here's another one. We're not going to discuss this. I'm not planning to discuss it this evening. But Ram shooting Vali from behind a tree. No, Ram directly answers, because Vali says that, what kind of personality are you? And he gives different things. I didn't do anything, you're coming to kill me, and you're hiding behind a tree. What kind of ruler are you? But Ram answers all of those things. So in general, the conduct of the personality of God is not understood by worldly people. In most circumstances, Ramachandra's behavior was transparently in keeping with principles of Dharma. And there are some, these are two, where the speech or the behavior of Ramachandra appears to be contrary to morality or common sense or ethical conduct. But there's explanations behind it. And if one doesn't look at the explanations behind it, it can be confusing, to say the least, disturbing. And Krishna also. I haven't read Gandhi's Bhagavad Gita, but I read that Gandhi wrote in his Bhagavad Gita, or spoke about Bhagavad Gita, that if it's true that there was a person named Krishna who induced Arjuna to fight in the battlefield in Kurukshetra, if it's true, then I renounce my Hinduism. And then my Krishna is da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So that Krishna did things that Krishna did, that's one of them. Some people are disturbed. At least Gandhi was very disturbed by it. And so to understand the personality of Godhead, it requires proper guidance, and it requires bhakti. So to understand Ramchandra's sending Sita away, the Sita's exile, it's we turn to our acharyas, please help us. And so the acharyas, like this nice example from Padma Purana, it's very clear why he did what he did. It was fulfilling the words of a Dvija. Interesting. So let's see if there's some discussion. You're going to need a bigger house. Where's our owner? Upstairs? Yeah, there you are. Either you have to have a bigger house or fewer friends.
We just moved here.
You just moved here? Really? How recently? Really? Oh, this is a housewarming. Okay. So there's some up in the balcony seats. I'm just teasing. Any discussion? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the class. So my question is, so Bhrigumuni gave a curse to the Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So is it a kind of Vaishnava Aparadh?
Is it kind of what?
Vaishnava Aparadh, because he gave curse to the
What?
Supreme.
What's Vaishnava Aparadh?
So Bhrigumuni gave curse to the.
Yeah, he did. He did a boo-boo.
Yeah, so is it a Vaishnava Aparadh, like giving curse to the Supreme Lord?
Yeah, it's bad.
So does Bhrigumuni falls from his position after that?
So what was the consequences you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't have the answer to that. I'm sure there was. Now, doing something like that was induced by the Supreme Lord. So when you do something that's induced by the Supreme Lord, it's not the same as just losing it and doing something, aparat. But there's consequences even.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. So, that's another research item for me. I don't have the answer for that.
Okay.
But, there's several explanations. One of this we read. Durvasa Muni giving this talk. Yeah. Is there something further? You got the microphone. You want to say something more?
No, Maharaj.
You're
Thank
good.
you.
Okay. Up front.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I have a question regarding the number 1 where the Dvija, the parrots, cursed Mother Sita. But more than that, it's how could Mother Sita, who is so compassionate, even do such a thing like, keeping the birds separate?
Oh, you have the answer. You know the answer.
For the Leela, we can say. But otherwise, it's very hard to, from her character, who's such a loving mother, it's not.
Definitely out of character.
Yeah.
She's gentle. She doesn't do stuff like that. Put a bird in a cage. I'm pregnant. Let me be with my husband. No. That's not Sita. So how does that something like that happen? In Yogamaya, induced by the Lord's potency for pastime purposes. Okay. Something in the back.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you so much. It's a very, very important and a very nice topic. I had heard 1 or 2 reasons, but now I have about 10 reasons.
It's 8.
8. Thank you. So, just Maharaj, I missed a couple of points. Fill in some blanks. That the two birds explanation is from, I missed making that note.
Padma Purana.
Padma Purana, okay.
So you have the document. You can study it after you send it to everybody.
Sure, Guru Maharaj. Next one was, you mentioned about, I really liked that point.
And it gives the exact section from Padma Purana. You can even go there if you want.
Sure.
Okay, next.
Is that I really like that other point that you mentioned, that it's not that Mother Sita was unfit for Ayodhya, but Ayodhya was unfit for Mother Sita.
Well, that's the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas. I'm just reciting them.
Sure. My question is like, Ayodhya was unfit for Mother Sita because of the presence of washermen, like
Yeah. I mean, there's two pictures. One is he was the only one saying bad stuff. And then there's another picture that says, and he was influencing others to say bad stuff or to hear bad stuff at least, and then have doubts in their mind about the integrity of their king.
Thanks. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj. One slide mentioned Krishna Prishta Aparada from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Yes.
That one.
Yes.
So I don't remember the exact wording, but from what I understand, it was something along the lines of like, Bhava can be destroyed if one either offends Krishna.
Yeah, that reference was also help.
Hare Krishna.
Is it batteries or the mic is yeah, the mic needs to go to a doctor, it looks like. I got the question. I got the question. So we discussed this the other evening also about same scriptural references from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in relation to Dvidvida. Because Dvidvida offended Lakshmana, and in this case Sita offended Lakshmana, and there in relation to Dvidvida, that bhava can be destroyed. Or we heard, if you remember, were you there? No. Okay. It depends in degrees. The worst is it can be destroyed completely. Bhava wiped out. And others it can be, diminished, etc. So it's a reference in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the Bhava Bhakti section of Rasamrita Sindhu, explaining offense has consequences. And they're especially dear. So Guru Aparad and Vaishnava Aparad are not the same category. They're degrees of offense.
But this was done in relation to, like, this was done out of love for Lord Ram, right? So, she, like, in a sense, like, maybe I'm wrong, but she was exhibiting, like, prema, like love for the Lord. And, like, by chastising, like, in this particular case, chastising Lakshman and finding. Why
Well, it wasn't. There's details. Here's some details. This is now from Sri Vaishnava Acharya saying, when Sita, the starting point for Sita's demise was, for the first time ever, at least in Leela, desiring something apart from the pleasure of Ram. She wanted the deer. And she even went so far as to say something out of character for Sita. Even if you can't capture the deer alive, you can shoot and kill the deer. And then when we get back to Ayodhya, we can sit on the deer skin and enjoy our happiness together. So, the point of the needle was desiring happiness apart from Ram's happiness. because, like we heard Pillai Lokacharya saying, it's one of her characteristics. She didn't have any other desire but Ram's desire at any sacrifice. So it's a commentary to explain when she did like that, it led to the next thing, led to the next thing. And the next thing was insulting Lakshman. And, you know, that was a big boo-boo.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you thank you so much for that amazing class,
I
Maharaj.
can hear you. Yeah, keep going.
So Maharaj, I have two questions, one from today's class and one from earlier classes.
Okay.
From the today's class, Maharaj, we see that there are different acharyas, they give different explanations to the same pastimes of the Lord.
Yes, I've noticed that.
And then Maharaj, one thing, like similarly, the atheistic people, they give the similar, like some reasoning for the same pastimes as well. Like some people say Lord Ram was normal personality, just like a nice human being. Like that, they give some different reasonings as well. So
Well, that's different than a different acharyas commenting.
yeah. So Maharaj, I wanted to ask, so similar to this, like Damodar pastime, we hear that Milk is thinking he wants to commit suicide, and then there are many reasonings for that as well. So I was wondering, are these reasons the real reasons in me? I mean,
Of course. How to say this succinctly? But your specific question is, are they real? The answer is yes.
okay. But one more thing I should add to this question is, so following to that, normal people think that, oh, we can also give some reasoning to some pastime.
That's different.
Right.
So if the adhikar of prema is there, then according to the adhikar of prema, different realizations are going to come. The Lord is unlimited, and He can reveal this, and He can reveal that, and He can reveal the other thing. And it has everything to do with their prema, their intense, loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. The milk boiling over, and, you know, I'm going to give up my life, and all of that. That's Jiva Goswami, by the way. So he's an authority that we accept. He's not just a poet that's writing Harry Potter. He's a perfected soul disclosing revelations that Krishna has given to him.
Makes sense.
And just, you know, a fellow, Kurukshetra means this and Dharmakshetra means that. And
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Maharaj, my second question is, when we do some service, like say some other devotee is doing some service, we tend to think, oh, I can do this service better than the other devotee. So there are two things here. One is competition and one is enviousness. That could be there as well. And I heard that enviousness can't be used in Krishna service, but competition can be used in Krishna service. Like December marathon is going on, so that is kind of a competition. Different centers are. So how can we understand that it is enviousness and competition mixed and get rid of enviousness?
what's the litmus test for envy? That's what you want to know. That's what you want to know?
Yes, Maharaj.
Who's the enjoyer? That's the litmus test.
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you.
Simple. Now, yeah, there's a scriptural reference for the previous one. I was a little distracted. So there's several of them, but one that I like the most because it's really simple and because I like Brahma Samhita very much. In, I think it's verse 61, Yadrashi Yadrashi Shraddha Siddhi Bhavati Tadrashi. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but Yadrashi Tadrashi, as this, so that. Right? Yavat Tavat. So Yadrashi Tadrashi. So Yadrashi. Yeah, Siddhi Bhavati Tadrashi. According to one's faith, one gets realization. Yadrashi Yadrashi Shraddha Siddhi Bhavati Tadrashi. So Bhakti Siddhanta translates Siddhi Bhavati as realization. It's his word for word in English. It's not a translator, coming up with their own translation. It's his English translation of Yadrashi Yadrashi Shraddha, corresponding to faith, Siddhi Bhavati Tadrashi. Realization arises according to one's faith. Now, you can say that for something material and something spiritual. But, the spiritual is spiritual, material is material. So, for perfected souls, their realization is their relationship with Krishna. He gives that. He discloses things about himself. So we accept those from the qualified Jiva Goswamis, etc., the pure devotees fixed in prema. And they describe things that may not be found in the Srimad Bhagavatam or other Puranic literatures, but it's revealed to them. Okay?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
You're a very special person. You get the microphone passed to you like that.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for wonderful series of lectures. So I've heard that Mother Sita was never really kidnapped.
She was what?
Mother Sita was never really kidnapped.
She was never really kidnapped.
Kidnapped, yeah. It was a different
yes.
expansion of Mother
Yes,
Sita.
yes.
So is there an explanation for this in Valmiki Ramayan, or
Is there any reason what?
is there an explanation for this in Valmiki Ramayan? Or-
About not Sita not being kidnapped?
Yes.
I don't know enough about this Ramayana, that Ramayana, the other Ramayana to say, to somebody in the room answer that question, really familiar with this is said in Valmiki Ramayana. And here's a for example. For example, in Valmiki Ramayana, there's no Lakshman Rekha. That much I know. It's a well-known, there's many paintings, it's a common, but it's not Valmiki Ramayana. Now, your particular question, I don't know. But I know the people that know, and by tomorrow, I can get you a document. Probably one of them's listening right now, and you can send me that the answer to that question so that I can forward it to others. And then as soon as they forward it to me, I'll forward it to Paramakruna. He can give it to you if you're on the list of his mailing list.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Okay. Anyone? Yes.
Maharaj, on whose question, there is, if you permit, there is a very nice verse in Srimad Bhagavatam which I like. If I can share that when Vyasadeva was getting distressed about writing all the Puranas and everything, and Narad Muni came to him that you have not described the pastimes of the Lord. Then Narad Muni tells to Vyasadeva, Samadhi anusmara tad vicheshitam, that go into Samadhi and whatever you see, you write that down.
Yes.
So I like that.
That's another
very
one.
much.
That's another one. But I thought you were going to quote the one that Hari Parshad always likes to quote. Yeah, the Yadrashi Shraddha. There's another one that's almost the same, but it's from another scriptural reference. And
Yes, he usually quotes the Brahma Samhita one directly that you quoted as well.
but there's another one that he
There's
quotes
another
a lot.
one. Yes.
So you find that other one that he quotes a lot and send it to us,
Okay.
because I can't remember it right now. Okay, anyone? We'll come back. It's a lively group tonight.
Yeah, I think we are trying to, find, some rationalism in this, but I think what you mentioned in one of the slides, that the love between Rama and Sita is confidential, so it's beyond our perception.
But yes, and our acharyas can disclose things not unlimitedly, but
Right.
according to their faith and their realization, they can disclose things. Next.
So Mother Sita, in her previous life, when she was Vaidehi and Ravana insulted her, she took vow to take birth and be cause for his destruction. Right? And then that had to happen. And then she had to be kidnapped. Otherwise, if Lakshmana were around, Ravana could never come and kidnap Sita. And she would never be in Lanka. And again, there was the situation in Lanka was also interlocked, that Ravana could never approach Sita without her willing, and she would never give her willing, because otherwise Ravana's head would, break or whatever. He had another curse.
Can you do it without the microphone? Because it's like... And let me do a little editing before you say it again without the microphone. Don't say never, because the pastimes of Ramachandra occur once in a day of Brahma, and there's variations on the theme on once in a day of Brahma. So it's not never, it's... So I'm just editing the frame of your question. So you got a strong voice. Go ahead.
I don't have any question. I'm just reflecting
You're reflecting.
that whatever happened was ordained by the supreme will of God.
There we go. And different times, the drama or the lila is different, because he's unlimited. The source of everything is unlimited, and so sometimes and sometimes. It doesn't always have to be the same thing. Variety is part of his display of pastimes, and it's part of the beauty of the supreme source of everything. It's not a disturbance. It's delightful. Okay, you have.
The first class you mentioned, like when we commit offenses, our attacks increase.
Speak without the microphone. Between the children and this microphone, it's hard.
When we commit the aparad,
When we can make aparad,
like our anarthas will increase.
yes.
And by chanting, anarthas will get nullified. But
That was if you chant without offense, because otherwise it could get amplified, not nullified.
I see that here, like Sita is committed like only like one of like very small offenses. I think like in the you mentioned today, but the consequence was
This is Dvida now.
Sita.
What Sita's offense was pretty heavy. What she said to Lakshman was really heavy.
Because the offenses that I commit, I think it's very less.
Oh,
So I was thinking,
that's no. She was accusing him very harshly. All along, you have only desired one thing, to enjoy me separately. Never. You're a lusty man. Get out of here. I'll take my life before you can touch me. And, whew. You say things like that?
My question is, Guru Maharaj, do we have to, like, if we commit so many offenses, like for every offense there's a consequence.
And for every good deed and every bad deed, there's consequence. Welcome to human life. I mean, you can go into lower form of life and it's not like that. But human form of life is a life of responsibility. So, back to your question.
My question is, like when we commit offenses, when anarthas increase, when we chant, anarthas will be removed.
But if you chant without offense, because
Still have consequence even though the anarthas are getting removed for all the aparats that we've done.
you want to know how to get rid of the consequences of offense. You want to know. You want to hear about an Arthandavritti process. That's what your question is. Yes.
Have like consequence along with like removal of anarthas.
Yeah, you feel better. That's a consequence. It's a good one. You got something else in your mind. You're not expressing your question clearly.
I don't know how many lifetimes it will take just to.
However many, that's how many. However many, that's how many. Stay with it. However many. Don't be discouraged because it's too many. And it can happen just like that. And it depends on your submission to the holy name. But we're the material circumstance can't check. Haitokiya pratyata yayatma suprasidati. You know the verse? You know the verse? You say the whole verse. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayodataha Janiyatiyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chaya Dahaitukam. That's one. What's the other one? Savai Pungsang Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Adhoksaje Ahaituki Apratiyata Yatma Suprasidati. You kind of know the verse. So now you live it. There's no material cause that can start it or stop it. So it doesn't matter how many. I mean, it matters because we live through the consequences, but it can't check bhakti. You believe it? You sure? You weren't sounding like it a minute ago.
Then in this example, like Sita, like Ram has accepted Sita despite that, but she still got the consequence, but still he accepted it.
But it's Leela. Don't compare yourself to Sita, please.
No. The example is for us to know, right? Like how we can have consequences.
Yes, that's what the Leela is helping us to see. Our balcony folks up there, you have something you want to add? Yes.
So, because it's Sita, Yoga Maya is part of it's the Leela under Yoga Maya.
Yes.
So she gets a consequence, but it's not a karmic reaction.
That's correct. But the explanation is from the Sri Vaishnava Acharya specifically, even if you're the goddess of fortune, don't offend Lakshman. So there's a Leela that she offended, and it's a Leela that she got consequences. It's a Leela, from beginning to end. But the lesson is, whoever you are, Vaishnava Aparada is very serious business. Go ahead. You get the last question. I hope it's a good one.
The biggest aparat is like instead is Vaishnava aparat. Even if you do aparat to the Bhagwan, he's okay to excuse you. But he cannot tolerate, and he himself does not have a solution to get you out of the Vaishnava aparat. So he wanted to show this to the world.
Yeah.
Now, as a good director, he wants to kind of show the important message. The director will choose the best performer, the best performer. God decides that who is the best performer. There's no one close to me now. I need to choose two actors for the best performance. One who is my wife, who is sitting in my chest, and the other one is Abhishek Lakshmi. So he wants to choose and then show this lead actor. I mean, share.
That's a sweet explanation. On a sweet note, we're going to end. Thank you very much, all of you. We'll see you, some of you, hopefully, tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.